Okay. Olá, bem-vindos. Salam. Khoshbakhtan. Thank you for everyone for coming, and thank you to anyone who's watching online maybe as well. I'm Roxana Al-Bayati. I'm an interdisciplinary artist and music educator, and I've been in residence here at Zaratan this month. And my practice centers around combining experimental music with performance art. And usually I'm exploring ideas such as identity, sense of belonging, and the body. Whilst I've been here, the project I've been working on has started a long time ago. It started in January. I think I really started work on 1st or 2nd of January of this year. So it's been a really long process, and the body of work is a multimedia project which ties all my different disciplines together. It uses video, sound, poetry, words, my movement practice as well, but mostly it uses music because I'm predominantly a musician. And before I delve into the project a bit more, I think I'll introduce myself a bit better first. So yeah, I'm a musician. I'm a classically trained cellist. I also use my voice and my qaychak, which is an Iranian traditional instrument, which is there. I'll play it a bit later for you. And the music I create takes inspiration from my lived experiences as well as my educational background. Which is mostly Western art music, as well as free improvisation and Iranian dastgah. Iranian dastgah really features a lot in this project, and this is the traditional Iranian music system. And it's quite different to the Western music system. It encompasses a musician as a whole, and there are really vague boundaries between a composer, a performer, and an improviser. And as a musician, I find there's a lot of freedom in the system, and you can place yourself at the center and push the boundaries as much as you like, or as much as you dare to. It's an oral-based tradition. Everything is taught orally, and there's a great amount of creative freedom. Even though there's a lot of specificities and details within the system, you can sort of move and adapt to it as you like. Anyway, Iranian dastgah hasn't been always in my practice though. It just emerged in 2020, and this was part of my master's thesis research project, which was a cross-cultural research project interrogating my personal as well as musical identities. But why did I start to do this? I was doing it because I got to a point in my career, my life, vague boundaries between these things, where I was doing lots of different things, but I couldn't find, or I couldn't see what was bringing them all together, the central gravitation to them all. So, as you do, I wanted to throw something else into mix. I wanted to throw a whole other music system in there, and the only way to do that without totally losing my head was to do it in a really thorough research structured manner. So I used something called artography. Artography is a research method. It's an autoethnographic research method, which stands for researcher, teacher, and artist, researcher, teacher, artography. And it's a process which combines creative practice with performative pedagogy, and you really place yourself at the center, and you submit, the researcher submits themselves to really extreme interrogation and analysis throughout the process. And it kind of, it brings you realizations which you're not sure that you're going to get to at the beginning. You might not even get anywhere through the process. So you're really dwelling on entry and exit of themes, whilst being in a constantly analytical state of what you're doing and what you're exploring. Rather than thinking of the end goal, you need to really just enjoy the process and live through the process if you can, because it's a very thorough lived experience. You're living art. And this was a year-long research project. I like year-long structures, apparently. But I really made fascinating conclusions, both about myself and everything else I was exploring. But I saw such great value in this autoethnographic way of working that I just continued to do it. I decided just to always live in this artographic manner, no matter if I had a research project or a creative project or anything. I just carried on living in this way. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because through artography, this is how I've gathered all the material and all the research for the residency I'm doing now. So, yeah, this year I traveled a lot, and I was traveling for many different reasons, many different projects with many different aims for each of these projects. But this residency really gave me a central gravitation for all these things I was doing, which was really nice. I started in Dubai, I went to Armenia, I also went to Sicily. These are the main places that feature in this project. And whilst I was doing all my other commitments in these places, I was always focusing on this project as well. And it was a location-based as well as writing a lot, creating words, and also using my body in these spaces with movement practice and dancing and all these things. So that's how I gathered the material. And whilst I've been here, I've been organizing material, reflecting on the material, and refining the material in different ways to make a presentable body of work. Now, the final part of this project, is probably the most important one, is Iran, because that's, in a way, the final destination after all these places I went. Clearly, I'm not there right now, I'm here, but my head is in Iran. And as I am Iranian, I'm half Iranian, half Iraqi, first generation British, my head is usually in Iran. And right now, there's something really big happening there. There's a women's revolution happening. The Iranian women and the Iranian people are fighting for, the slogan is Zan Zindagi Azadi, which is women, life, freedom. And this event is unignorable for me as an Iranian, but also because my work explores these things anyway. Women, life, and freedom. So what's happening? To put it simply, Iranian women and the support of the rest of the nation, they're fighting for their freedom. They're risking their lives, and it's been going on for 2 months now, I think over 2 months. And we're really sort of in the middle of something very, very big, and it's unignorable. I've been talking to a lot of people about it. I've been here in Portugal, and I've also been in the UK, and people have different levels of understanding on what's going on. Different levels of understanding about what's actually happening now, what's happened in Iran in the past, what it means to be an Iranian in Iran, or an Iranian who's traveled outside of Iran, or an Iranian who, like me, has been born outside of Iran. But what I want to urge people to do is to talk to your friends about it, keep yourself updated. If you're not already updated about what's going on, try to find a reputable source and learn about what's happening, because this isn't going away anytime soon. Iranians are fighting, and they're going to keep on doing that. So it is always hard to find an accurate source online, especially here in the West. I think people aren't always sure they're getting the right information. But if you want to check, that you're reading the right information, I think the correct information would make you simultaneously overwhelming sort of admiration for the bravery of these people, but it would also make you sick to your stomach with how the government is treating them. And if you don't feel these two things when you read what's happening in Iran right now, I think it is probably the wrong information. So please do try to see what's going on if you care. Anyway, back to this project. I'm addressing this in my work because I've always addressed this in my work. I've always been exploring myself as a female in society, my place, other females' place in society, and our bodies. And also talking about different types of freedom. Myself personally, I explore freedom probably in a very different way to what Iranians are fighting for right now in Iran. Right now, they're fighting for basic rights. Women are fighting for their rights to sing in the streets, to show their hair, the right to travel without permission. And then on the total opposite spectrum, although it's all quite intertwined, I'm sitting here in the West exploring still women's place in society, but freedom of the mind and freedom of the physiological experiences that you get from the lack of freedom of the mind. And although these two things can be very separated, I think they can also be very, very linked together. And that's what I'm trying to do in my work, in the most respectful and artistic way, to myself and to all other women, especially for the women right now who are fighting and risking their lives for everything they're doing. So with this project and this body of work, I toyed with the idea of forgetting everything I did this year and dedicating it to Zan Zindagi Azadi. I also toyed with the idea of trying to ignore what's happening in Iran and getting on with the work I originally set out to do, but that was impossible because they're intertwined, and I'm Iranian, and every Iranian right now is having their own experience. Whether you're an Iranian in Iran, someone who's moved out yesterday, 10 days ago, 10 years ago, 40 years ago, or you're an Iranian like myself who's been born outside and you're part of a first-generation diaspora. Everyone is having a very specific experience, and it's probably not an easy one. It's really not an easy one. So this body of work is trying to address that. That's what I'm trying to do. So what will it be? Well, I'm going to start in a minute. I'll show you some music, which I've been working on. And there will also be an open studio next week. And then there'll be a live performance as well. The live performance, I'm really honored to be doing it with Rebecca Murad Alizadeh, who's sitting here. We are new friends. We've met really recently, but we have this special connection. So it's really an honor to have her performing with me. And also who will be performing with me is Rodrigo Barroso Camacho, and he is a very old friend. He's a very a friend of mine who has seen me on this journey of becoming, both musically and personally. So it's really also a big honor to have him on stage with me as well. And yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. And then maybe after the questions, I will perform a bit for you. Thank you. Any questions?
You mentioned about freedom of the mind and freedom of physiological experiences. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by this?
So, I think freedom in the mind, talking about, simply personal troubles which you might have, and how this affects you on an everyday life. On small scales as well as big scales, if you're dealing with personal or generational trauma, it affects your mind. Sometimes it affects your mind so much that it manifests in physical experiences, whether that's like physical touch experiences, visual experiences, or mental experiences, which is another type of physiological experience. And I like to play between how those two are intertwined and how we can either overcome them or understand them more. So understand yourself more through what you are experiencing in your head and in your body. If that answers the question.
I think the idea of freedom for me gives you the idea of stepping outside from something. You're talking about working through something, right?
Yeah. So perhaps we can say, so freedom, I don't know how loud that is. Yeah, it's okay. Freedom from ourselves, freedom from what you're experiencing inside yourself, mentally or physically, which can be a result of yourself, or it can be a result of external factors, society, history, generational experiences. But if any of that causes someone trouble, how you can break away from that, how you can move forward and find your own form of freedom in living, just to live freely.
Maybe I have a question. Like for me, the project is very interesting how it has been moving all year in different places. And I think this experiment of putting your body in different culture and being immersed somehow allowed you to be more connected to something that is not to this cause. I don't know how to put it very clearly. Maybe my question is how this displacement is feeding your research in terms of the artistic output and your way of thinking.
myself in these spaces, which I think is the more simple one, because I'm used to working in this autoethnographic way, where I analyze how I react in these spaces, musically and verbally, how I'm talking to people. It depends on what I'm doing in that space, if I'm there to work or relax or to explore, anything. Also depends on the language I'm speaking, depends on the artistic way of exploring I decide to use. So if I, for example, if I decide to improvise somewhere, I then go back and analyze that improvisation. Think about, how did that place make me feel? What was I experiencing at that time? What music did I end up playing? Are there any references to that music from the past, or am I looking to something in the future in my music? What exactly is happening with the personal act I'm doing in that space? Music is one example. Another example is a conversation I'm having with someone. If I'm not speaking English, which is my first language, it's really interesting when you start speaking a second or third language, and you see how you react to people, or how you literally what words come out of your mouth. It can tell you some information about your subconscious, I think. So that's one thing, analyzing myself in the space. The second part is analyzing the space, just observing the people, talking to the people. Yeah, I'm trained in this ethnographic research, so interviewing people and analyzing behavior and such things. So which I don't do constantly, but once you know how to work in this way, you do it without realizing. Just analyzing is a strong word, but
It's quite entangled in your course as a person, maybe.
yeah.
But for me, something interesting, my feeling is you are always challenging yourself somehow to go outside of a comfort zone, even not just geographically or culturally, but also in terms of medium, this idea of, okay, I'm a musician when I want to go towards performance or movie making, and kind of always trying to find a new border to cross.
Mhm.
And I think this is very interesting in terms of how you can repeat or create a method that can, or maybe it's not repeatable because it's part of your identity.
Okay.
It's so entangled that you cannot. Yeah, maybe this was just a comment.
A comment. Yeah. No, it's true, because I don't know why I constantly push myself to do different things. Just part of my personality, maybe. But as the year went on, this may be interesting. At the start of the year, I was already doing different things in different spaces, dancing, making music, and then talking. By the end, it was overwhelming. It was like, what medium do I use now? Do I dance? Do I sing? What do I do? I have all these things I can do. I just don't know what's appropriate. And as the year went on, it was easier to decide what to do, because I understood myself more and I understood the space more. I felt what was more appropriate for that space as well. For example, in the mountains in Armenia, I tried playing music there, and it didn't feel right, not only for the space, but for myself. That's probably also a comment rather than it's just elaborating on what you said. But yeah, it's a process. Yeah.
I have a last, and it's not really a question. It's and say whatever you want. I'm very interested in this idea that you talk a lot about Iran, without having been there. Right?
Yeah.
And I wonder also now when you talk about your work and this idea of space, if, the idea that I was trying to fight a little bit with the word. There's an idea of desire, in a way,
Yeah.
a movement towards something, right?
Yeah.
Could you comment on?
Yeah,
what I'm
elaborate
saying?
on it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big topic because, yeah, like you said, I don't know if people heard. I've never been to Iran. It's often complicated to go back to Iran for if you're outside. The idea that we want to go, we might not be able to go. Who knows if we'll be able to go? And we're all obsessed with going, totally obsessed. It's in our heads constantly. And it's not just me, it's friends who are also really intrigued by Iran and genuinely fascinated by it, and they also feel a very strong connection. I've been with friends who we've been really close to the Iranian border, and we sort of look at it in the general direction of Iran, thinking, that's as close as we're getting right now, for now, maybe. Let's see. امید داریم. Yeah, I can elaborate in a different way. I don't know if that's appropriate. Right.
Well, I can ask something. You mentioned that you toyed with the idea of trying to kind of, if I understood correctly, try to isolate your thoughts, your process from what's going on in Iran. Was that simply just like you're exploring all the options, like I can either think about it directly or not directly, or was there some kind of animating idea that made you think that it could be profitable in an artistic sense to explore your work without thinking about Iran? Also because I think maybe there is an idea that art and the idea of being a citizen should be separated, or maybe that idea comes and goes according to social circumstances. And do you think art should always consider the social citizen aspect of life? Or is there something that is really profitable about trying to isolate yourself completely from that social dimension? In 3 words or less.
3 words or less. I don't know. That's the 3 words. That's the end. No, you kind of explained it yourself. It was all those reasons intertwined. I mean, firstly to say, as an artist, I find it very hard to create work without considering who I am and where I am, and where I come from. Just because it's in the forefront of my thoughts. It's not the forefront of everyone's thoughts. And I think when it's not in the forefront of your thoughts, it's easier to forget about it. Or not forget, maybe push to the back of your subconscious. But it's easier to work and create work, which isn't directly related, I say directly, related to those social aspects. When something very prominent begins to happen in the news, it becomes a bit more complicated. Why I toyed with the idea of ignoring it. Again, multiple reasons. Maybe there's 2 main ones. The first one is out of fear of not presenting it properly, fear of not respecting the people who are risking their lives on a daily basis. You simply don't want to. We're in the middle of a storm, and you don't know when you're going to get out. And if I sit here starting talking about it, it's a complicated topic. So for that reason. The second reason, there was a second reason, I can't remember now. Personally, it's hard. It's emotionally hard. It's this month has been, I mean, this year has been a journey, and everything that's been happening around Iran is emotionally, takes emotional toll on everyone who is related to this country or this movement. when your work starts to intertwine with your emotions, you always have to consider these things for the health balance. But then sometimes that health balance goes out the window and you end up doing things because you think it's necessary to talk for yourself and for others. I think that answered your question. Yeah.
Ask a quick one. You said that people should get to read it and try to understand what's going on there. I usually read the news every day. I try to get along. I try to get it what happens there, but I've never been there, and also I haven't been in touch with the Iranian culture, and I don't know. Do you think up until there's a point where I can get it, and there's a point where after that I just cannot get it, no matter how much I get to read it from the news or I can get to read it from somebody from there.
Yeah.
My point is, I don't think there's a saying that says I'm never gonna be free while another woman is a prisoner. But I don't even know if I can really. I'm a Latin American woman. I don't know if I can really get it, no matter how much I try, because my culture is so different, and I've always been so apart. So sometimes I don't think I even have the right to be talking about it. It's not like my place of speech. So do you think it's wrong for some reason that people like white people or like people who has nothing to do with it, like Asian people, I don't know, if they just start talking about it like if it was their matter?
I think it's a really good question. Thank you for asking. A friend said to me actually a few weeks ago, she sent me a message, and she's white European, and she said, I want to quote correctly, I can't figure out, like something like, I don't know what to say to you because of what's happening. But I've thought about it a lot, and I've seen a lot of photos on the news, and I understand that I will not understand, but I understand their faces. And I think at the end of the day, we're all human. And if a human sees another human suffering, as long as you understand that you don't understand what they're going through or what they've been through, exactly, like details, we've all been through similar things. I've never had to fear my life for not covering my hair. But I know people who have, and I've seen people who've been traumatized by it. And I'm like you. I'm just like you. I understand, I will never understand, and it affects us all in different ways. And that's as good as it gets is not the right thing. That's good. That's perfect. The fact that you're asking that question is important. The fact that people are talking about it is important. And I think it's sort of not irrelevant, but this is just one thing that's happening right now. There's a million things happening in the world, a million atrocities, a million people suffering. We're all human. And we have that connection, and also women. We're all women. We've all experienced repression and aggression and violence towards ourselves and our place and our bodies in different ways, and I think we can unite on that. There's no argument there. So I don't think you should ever feel you don't have a right to talk about it or think about it or engage with it. Engage with it however you can with an open mind. And you're beautiful for having asked that, so that it's perfect. Yeah, it's raining. Yeah, it's raining. I'm fine with the rain. Maybe the cameras aren't, but.
Should we move inside?
Yeah, maybe we take a minute and I can perform inside. Yeah, yeah.